like to resume the recess meeting from last week and call the meeting to order. Ms. Heidi York.
Good late morning, Commissioners. We're prepared to kick off your second budget work session. Just a couple of items that I wanted to remind you of from last time. Commissioner Jeffers had asked me to follow up on bringing you a fee for false fire alarms related to residential service. And I have our fire inspector working on that. It will require a public hearing, so we'll do that outside of the budget process and hopefully bring back something in July or August on that. And the other item that you had asked me to follow up on was gathering some information about the agricultural economic development position. And if you'll look in your Dropbox under the budget fiscal year 17-18 folder, we added an item in there a couple of days ago, which includes some sample job descriptions. We were able to get those from Orange County and Polk County. They both have a similar position. And then I have some salary data to share with you if you want to continue consideration of that position as an adjustment to the budget. So those were the two follow-up items from our June 7th meeting. And I will bring back the calculator tool that we have just to show you again where we are with the adjustments that have come from the recommended budget. And then I did add under the on the column on the right, under that solid black line, are the few positions that we had discussed at the last work session in terms of some potential adjustments that you might like to consider. And so put those up there with some costs just as a frame of reference. Obviously no decisions have been made about any of those below the black line, but that gives you some idea of how far out we are, which is the red column. Now red, remember it turns green when you are to the good, turns red when you are over budget. So with those new adjustments, that gives you some frame of reference as in terms of where we are. But again, this is a dynamic tool. We will cut and paste and adjust as your conversation dictates. But that's kind of where we left off. And I also wanted to let you know that Diane Cox is here. She was not able to join us at the last meeting. If you have questions about the needs of the senior center, their operating budget, she is able to join us today and prepared to speak to the to that budget as well. So I think I've set the stage. If there's any other questions,
So
happy to
other
answer
than
those.
take out what's under the black line, we're sitting with 20-some thousand in green, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. If you want to start there, that would be fine too. I just wanted to remind you.
What was that total we're in green without the bottom?
It was like 28.
Do you know?
500.
We can just subtract the
21,540
two.
was
21,540.
what Brenda had in the notes.
Okay.
21,540.
Is there any discussion?
I'd like to see us go ahead and deal with the senior center thing and get that out of our way.
Okay.
We need the 55,926.
And where I got the 55,926, not to alarm you, Diana, but just seeing that number, that is an adjustment from Amy's analysis of the budget ask that Diana, of course, has not presented to her board yet, but that was around the 88,000. Then we backed out the match for the home community care block grant. You'll see that up there as an expenditure. And then that's the 32,545 right above that black line. And that left you with the balance of 55,926, just to help you know where we were with that number. Your numbers may, or request may be a little different than what numbers we were plugging, but that's where that number came from.
So is that different?
No. Currently, my draft budget that has been, will be presented to my board next Thursday night is, the difference is the 55,926.
Okay.
My original ask to the county was the $100,000, which was the agreement that we had back in 2011 when the county asked us to form the nonprofit.
We worked it out now where we're okay with that.
Again, it's a draft budget, of course, our Region K board will
Right.
have to approve, but that is my proposed budget. And it's based on the best numbers that I have, of course. We've only been in that building for a few months now, so it's based on the,
But we understand that.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we put the 55,926 in and get this project done.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there any discussion?
Where's that coming from?
You may have to take it out of fund balance temporarily until we see.
Any further discussion?
If you utilize the 21,540, we want to be looking for 34,386 then.
What was that number? You,
So we got 21,540, so we'll be looking for 34,386.
any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a comment on it. Given next year's budget, I think it's important to hold on to as much fund balance as possible, given any unexpected expenditures with potential closure of the landfill. Therefore, if an item is trying to be paid for out of fund balance, I cannot support it.
Any further discussion?
A thought along those lines. Something that you could take off. I saw someplace, I forget my page numbers, but commissioner travel in there about $12,000. Is that correct, Amy? Somewhere, I don't remember.
The details of the governing body budget can be
Page 35.
found on page 35.
Yeah. I think we could
12,443.
take it out for the year. That would be $12,000 that you could use for that long.
You got 100,000 in contingency. That's already budgeted.
No problem. I understand that, but I'm saying I think that's a very high number for travel for board.
What's the total that we need for this?
We needed an additional 34,386 for the budget to balance to zero.
Okay, 34,000, that's for, okay.
Yeah, that's using the 21,540 and an additional.
55,926.
I would propose, or my suggestion would be to get to the 34,386. There's several items that I looked at, and I've got quite a few if we need to go there, but just looking at the very first part, and I think having some skin in the game, when I go through and start looking at other departments' budgets, one of the things that I haven't done in the past, and I apologize for that, is look at the governing body. And so when I went through starting looking for money, I came up with $59,611 out of the governing body piece, which is the county commissioners. Part of that is a 10% cut in salary and wages, which would give us $5,300 that we could spend. Doing away with the group insurance, which would save the county taxpayers $41,868, and then an additional $12,443 from the travel budget, which comes to a total of $59,611. And so if I had my rathers, rather than going into fund balance, if we take that $59,611, that still leaves us about $25,000 to the good, and not getting into fund balance.
Is that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Well, we have a motion on the table.
I understand.
I would make it in form of a
Substitute.
substitute motion that we use $59,611 from the salaries, 10% of salaries, group insurance, and travel and meetings to get $32,386.
You're gonna cut
Cut
our salaries by 10%?
cut all the salaries by 10%. Currently, it's $53,004, so it'd be $5,300 out of it, $41,868 out of group insurance. Not only does that save the $41,868, but it also, since we're self-insured, it saves us money on the back end from the doctor visits, all of those other things. So that's a savings that will continue even after you take that $41,868 out. So you can say that it's $41,868, but it could potentially be more. I had a hip
Sounds like your
replacement.
staff has something to say, but they don't know how to say
My
it.
We're just
staff
twitching.
wants to talk about the salary reduction.
Okay.
Okay, so Laura has done a little research this morning.
Okay, and
on
hopefully
this.
I don't kill Amy's computer before I can get through this. Good.
Morning.
The Board of Commissioners, of course, does have the authority to set their own salary. However, in terms of compensation, the Board of Commissioners, according to General Statute 153A-92, the Board of Commissioners may not reduce the salary, allowances, or other compensation paid to an officer elected by the people for the duties of his elective office if the reduction is to take effect during the term of office for which the incumbent officer has been elected, basically during their term.
Because our filing fee was percentage of what we were gonna get compensated, that was like a reason why?
Say that one
That's
more time.
correct. That is
Like,
correct.
Our filing fee to run was a percentage of what our compensation
That's right.
was.
That's right.
That's
So, I
right.
mean, yeah.
So if the Board of Commissioners reduces the salaries, allowances, or other compensation of employees assigned to an officer elected by the people, and the reduction does not apply alike to all county offices and departments, the elected officer must approve the reduction. So essentially, you all can discuss this, but individually, you must individually make that type of decision for yourselves.
Does that include like registered deeds, the sheriff, people like that's elected?
Yes, all elected officials. So, for example, you could not choose to reduce the Register of Deeds salary without the registrar's agreement to that, unless all county departments were being reduced in the same manner.
So if it was a 5-0 vote,
Then it is allowed if you.
It is
all-
allowed.
The other issue with that we've heard from school government this morning, from Diane Jeffress, is that if you do choose individually to reduce or not take a salary, you cannot choose where your salary money would go. So you could not say, I would like to not take a salary and then instead redirect my salary to this issue.
And you basically do that, if you were to do that as a board, you're basically redirecting that because we're in budget deliberations and making those decisions. So my interpretation of that is that you cannot take action as a board to reduce your salaries. You can do so individually, but we cannot make any budget decisions based on whatever you decide individually to do.
so where would the money go to?
Fund
What
balance.
would happen is if you waived, say that you waived your salary and benefits, then basically, we would still have to budget it because you couldn't take any action on the budget for that reason, but the expense just wouldn't take place.
All right, so if,
So it essentially would roll to fund balance.
all right, so if we take out, what would be the percentage? Would you say 5,300, Tracy?
$5,000.
$5,000, so we reduce our salaries by $10,000, $5,000. We allocate $5,000 from fund balance to go towards the senior center, and $5,000 goes into the fund
I
balance.
think we would be running into making decisions using your salary, putting it towards specific projects or programs.
You still can't make a decision, a budgetary decision based on your choice to waive your salary and benefits or reduce it in any way. So
So-
there cannot be any budgetary decisions today based on if you all individually decide to waive your salary.
So even if I changed my substitute motion to state that we do the reduction but not utilizing it towards the gap in senior center, it still doesn't apply.
I think it would be a very thin line. I think and of course, the county attorney's not here to interpret this law, but my interpretation of it is, it doesn't have, it should not have a bearing on any budgetary decisions that you make today.
Can we get the county attorney on the phone?
I can try to reach him, he's in Costa Rica, but he's not prepared to analyze the statute in front of him.
Mr. Chairman,
We can defer it.
What if we
Mr. Chairman,
withdraw,
I
what
want-
if we withdraw all motions and discuss this a little further before we start throwing out motions? If we, obviously, we got a lot to discuss.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with that. I'll withdraw my substitute motion, Jimmy.
I withdraw my motion.
Completeness of the information.
So just so the calculator's keeping up with the conversation, I'm gonna go ahead and blank those out so that you can be back in the green. That was really just for y'all to see.
I was just trying to get the senior center thing put to bed. Then we got off on another
Cutting anything.
trip. And,
It sounds like a bunch of bureaucrats made the rules so that you couldn't cut anything, is what it sounds to me.
Does that include?
One thing I looked at since we were throwing out our ideas, since we got that 21,540, I would like to see us to commit to the Percy County Schools 150,000, PCC 29,000. This is for their salary increases that will come from the state. And I say commit because we don't know what that will be, and that's something that we could maybe fund, once it comes down, whenever the state gets a budget. We've just committed that we would spend that. I don't see anywhere to get that but out of fund balance. And that's $179,000.
Does,
All right, if we.
But you may not use it.
Right. And then if we look at the senior center, and then we'll be looking for $34,386. If we deduct our contingency fund right now, that we have $100,000 in there, that will leave us $65,615 in contingency. And then I would vote to cut our travel by $10,000 and put that toward a part-time ag position on the EDC. Now, if we could agree on that, I'll make that motion and support this budget this year.
does the salary and does the group insurance for the county commissioners fall into that same fold?
Yes, it's a form of compensation.
Okay.
But most of us don't have the insurance, so we got it in this budget line item, but has it been spent?
No, all of you have it except for,
Huh?
I think all.
Currently, everybody
Yeah.
has
I don't
something.
think I've got the dental,
You have, right.
but I don't have to
But
have
next
dental, but I
year,
got it.
Commissioner Powell has elected not to take it, so.
That comes down to the individual choice by the member not to take it, but it is
It's an
budgeted.
option.
But it's an individual's decision.
Well, I have a question. What if each one of us say we elect not to take it, to withdraw? I mean, privately, that's $42,000 that goes back into fund balance, right?
Eventually, at the end of the year, we still have to budget for it.
Right. And individually, after, this is all said and done, you can make that decision.
All right.
So did y'all understand what I was saying? No questions?
I did, and I had something I wanted to touch base on, and it's according to the 150,000 that you were discussing for the schools, and I'm very appreciative of our school system. We've got some really good people here, but when I look at the $150,000, there's a clear defined line within the county of what the county taxpayers are responsible for, and that's CIP and building operational costs. Salary and benefits is a function of the state government. We in the past as county commissioners, not me, I wasn't sitting on the board at the time, but the county taxpayers have stepped up to the plate in the past, and our teacher supplement is still within the top 10 of the 100 counties within the state. So we've shown a commitment to our schools and to our teachers through the school systems, and if we continue to prop up the poor decisions of our state elected officials, then they're not held responsible for their actions. And so I couldn't support, as a county commissioner, spending taxpayers' money to prop up a obligation that our state elected officials. It's just, I use the analogy of when we built Stories Creek School a few years back. We were responsible for buildings and CIP. Well, we didn't get almost to the end of our obligation and say we weren't going to pay the last $1 million and make the state pay for that. We couldn't do it because that's not part of their obligation. And it's not, may not be a popular thing that I'm saying, but it's the truth that when we continue to prop up poor decisions by our state elected officials, then we're allowing them, or we're enabling them to continue to do this to us. And I've heard on multiple occasions, sitting in this chair and other chairs, that, you know, they continue to throw it down to the counties, and it's used as an argument not to do that. So I can't support poor decisions by the state legislative officials.
What about the acquisition? Are you interested in looking at that maybe part-time?
I am, and one of the things that I'd like to discuss, we've had Sybil working on some information related to the ag position that's probably could be a contract position with the state of North Carolina and North Carolina A&T. They offer a service to other counties that brings people in at a contracted price to help out. So you don't have to have that position and those benefits.
As a county employee.
As a county employee, but you sign a contract for 6 months, 8 months, a year, or whatever it is, and they come in and do those things. I'm a little conflicted. I want to say this out in open forum. I'm a little conflicted, but we'll continue to try to find money for it. I've got pages upon pages of cuts that I was going to propose today. When we have 4 EMS people that we're not going to fund that was asked for in our budget, and we've talked about that before, the health and welfare and well-being of our tax-paying citizens in Person County, it's kind of hard to be fully committed to that position when I know the health and welfare of individuals could be compromised in possible litigation. Our agricultural community, I think we heard, brings in about $91 million to Person County. They do a lot of stuff. I know I go to Food Line on Saturdays and see the benefit of having migrant working here, and they're shopping in our community. They're doing other things to bring tax revenue to us. But I'd be committed to finding the additional money. But I would ask that we do a little bit more homework, look at the options of the contract position from NCSU and NCA&T to make sure that we do it correctly without just jumping into it and saying that we're going to spend it. So possibly putting $38,000 in contingency for half a year and give us the opportunity to work on the what fors to make sure we do the right thing.
I'm fine with that as long as we're not, killing it. If we just think we need to do more research on it and look at it, I mean, I see no problem with that.
Well, it was presented sort of late in the year too, so, it's a good point.
And I think just by talking about this, it gives the ag community a commitment that we're still looking at it, but we just need some more answers before we jump in and make a poor decision. I think I myself as a board member have made poor decisions in the past because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I don't want us to do that again.
So, what about the senior center? So if we do the senior center, it leaves $34,000. You take that from contingency, that leaves $65,615. Is that a budget that's just two things you gotta do today to get a budget ordinance back?
How much would you like to allocate for the ag position? The salary.
We're not talking about that now. He said we wanna wait and look at that.
You
Right.
don't want to set any money aside for that then?
So you gonna set aside now, or you wanna come back to us later? I mean, we always can add, we can have
A budget
a budget
amendment.
amendment.
Number on
It was
that?
it was
It was-
40 to 80,000, half part-time to full-time, I think.
Yeah, and then in your packet, they have
Yeah,
some
here.
ranges.
Polk
Yeah.
County does 40 to 48,000.
We're recommending a hiring rate of about 45,000. So if you wanted to do half of that, without benefits, somewhere in the range of 20 to 25.
Well, if you take out what we needed for the senior center at $34,000, it still leaves you $65,000 contingency. I mean, it's still sitting there undesignated.
All right, so we got 100,000 contingency, or 21,540 to the good, correct? All right, so,
Do senior center 55,926, and that'll leave us $65,615 in contingency, and that's a budget ordinance.
all right, so allocating the 34,
386.
386 for senior center out of contingency, not touching fund balance.
Well, it's 55,900.
Yeah, but we got 21,540
Okay,
left.
right,
So we're only
that's the
looking for
difference.
34,386, take it out of contingency, and the budget, the contingency fund would be 65,615. You want a motion? I mean, I won't go jump the gun, we won't discuss more things.
Is there any further discussion on it?
Okay.
All right, so we had the 34 at 386 and 25,000 for acquisitions, is that what you said?
Well, we got 65,615 left in contingency, so we can designate whatever you want out of that to the side for
Later on in the
ag.
year.
But right now, it's not gonna be spent unless three of
Okay,
us
so
say
just-
spend it.
Just
So
hold off till we
it's
get
just
all
there.
of the numbers, and we'd still have 65,686 in contingency.
Yes.
Is this correct?
65,614.
65,614.
Is that correct? I reduced contingency
Yes.
by 34
That's correct.
and balanced the budget
That's correct.
So are we balanced?
0.
So, Brenda, do you understand what I'm saying? I make that a form of motion to bring back a budget ordinance reflecting those changes.
All right, there's a motion on the table to take 34,386 out of contingency, that leaves 65,614, and that balance, and it balances the budget exactly. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion on the table, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, the budget's balanced.
That's compromising with you guys.
Thank you.
But I will say on record here, I mean, I'm very glad that we did not touch fund balance, because next year scares me a whole lot. It scares me a whole lot, and we really don't know what to expect, so I'm grateful that we did not touch it.
Yeah, thank you. I'd also like to say thank you to Heidi, Sybil, and the staff for all of the work that they put in here. Every year, we come here and we try to do the best for what's our taxpayer dollars are, and what our taxpayers are paying in. Thank you guys for bringing a budget to us that we can work with, even though it took us a couple of meetings to get to this point. I think we've filled in the gaps. We've discussed the items that needed to be discussed to get to the point where we got a balanced budget. Thank you to the community. Thank you for everybody that came here, and we appreciate y'all being a part of this process and coming and being in on it. So, are there any other discussions? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adjourned.